Okay.
Wow.
We are instantly streaming again so we don't waste time. Good stuff.
Did you say we're streaming again?
Yes.
Let's just skip intros. People know who we are and what we do. Save it for the outro.
If you don't, then this is Travis. He has a beard and does interviews. It's Emily. She always looks like this, and Marks does LCS stuff. We're good. Yeah.
All right. Hi everyone, and welcome to League Coded Rift of the show because I'm getting kicked out of my hotel room very shortly. I'm not going to take too much time introducing everybody, but really quickly, Mark Zimmerman is the host of the Blame Game, does stuff for Offline TV GG, I think.
Ignore the GG. That's just a horrible fucking social media
Offline TV
thing. Yeah, Offline TV.
Then there's also Emily Rand, who is a former Yahoo esports writer and now writes for everyone else in the entire world. And then you also have Kelsey Moser here from China, and she's actually in Germany now. So, but she's the generally considered the foremost expert in the West on China and also other things. I want to caution and warn all of my friends that watch this show, all you wonderful Europeans, because oftentimes you get angry in the comments of my videos whenever I celebrate North American, empowerment and success, and you get very frustrated. And I just want to say, so that maybe you and I are in a better place, you shouldn't watch this episode. We're going to be talking about Rift Rivals. Of course, you guys lost Rift Rivals.
I want them to watch it.
Okay. Well, we're going to be talking about all that and more. And, of course, the very first topic is no one else believed, and I got it right.
I don't see that as the first topic in the topic list, Travis.
Yeah, well, it's the hidden, secret first topic. You guys, I'm sure, saw the video that I put out on Twitter, where everybody else was like, oh, yeah, North America, as if they're going to win. You laughed and scored me.
I think we saw the last episode. I was complaining about how shit your top European teams were in general, but,
Yeah.
You weren't doubting them.
I mean...
Yes, she was.
Yeah, I kind of was.
Rift Rivals?
Not at Rift Rivals, but I was doubting them for sure. I will not take credit for the final prediction, but I think that Immortals and the top NA teams were performing better going into the tournament, but I wasn't sure on the trajectory of TSM and C9 because I felt like it was soon, and no one expected P1, so that was a good thing.
Yeah, if P1 played anything like they've been playing the first 4 weeks of the LCS, then Europe probably wins more games, but TSM still wins, and then it's a toss-up.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into
I'd agree with that.
But really quickly, what if P1 was just playing as well as they always do? It's just that they only had to play against European teams, so...
That is not true at all.
I mean, since you were not there at the event, Travis, I got to interview the NA people for you, and they were all saying, yeah, we just started playing really weird and really well, and they were, surprised by their own ability to play well.
Yeah.
So.
Suddenly, it's normally in North America, it's really hard to win. And, we actually have to try it, all this stuff.
I like how Travis is trying to take credit for just, facetiously being a contrarian. No, I really predicted this, guy. And there was no point, was I just kidding?
Let's just give it to him, let's...
Okay.
In North America.
Let's just give it to him.
Okay.
Round of applause.
Thank you.
Woo.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
But that kind of does reach. Does reach in the next one.
Why did NA outperform Europe?
So this is my topic, but it's pretty broad, so we can jump in. It's just what did NA do better than EU, and why they won. And I mean, obviously you can be like, oh, they were better teams, or I think when I was watching the broadcast, it felt like almost after every game they went to the analyst desk, and the European players on the analyst desk just looked sad, and they're like, yeah, NA they team fight better and they're proactive and blah blah blah. And I wanted to know, what your guys' opinion was on it, because I have a I have a take, I guess. Should I just go first? I'll just go first. Fuck
yeah,
it.
If you want to go first, go for it.
So I feel like ever since like Loco joined TSM in season 4, TSM has been like the closest team in North America, specifically for a little while at least, to like want to be like a Korean team in terms of like how they approach the game and doing like set plays and mid jungle priority and this and that. And I feel like they kind of brought some of that influence to NA and how they approach the game. And like the second and third place NA teams have always kind of been a little different up until, because like High with C9 was very different, and then once they eventually got rid of High and they're in the form that they are now, they are also kind of playing like slow, steady, calculated play. And I feel like for the most part, Europe has not generally gone for that approach. They've always been kind of like the ones with the more creative picks, the creative play styles. They go for the crazy stuff, and I think this time around, just like the North American teams, excluding P1 because they're not at all like TSM or C9. They like the controlled style just kind of overtook the creativity, and they were just like, no, we're gonna grind you out, and we're gonna go for an Ashe arrow mid and another Ashe arrow mid, and that we're gonna keep doing like this kind of play style, and you're gonna lose to it.
I think
really
a lot.
Mark, like you're going along with that Reddit thing where NA just tries to be Korea. Sounds like
no, I don't think you're trying to be Korea. I think it's just like a mentality that like NA has adopted that I don't think EU is quite the same level. We're pretty hard focused on like set plays and like going for like coordinated like team stuff and like working with mid priority and doing this. And I feel like Unicorns of Love just want to team fight mid. That's not like our style necessarily. Like we try and like build up to a play and then execute that play.
Okay, sorry, Emily, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think so in every region and then globally with SK Telecom, whenever there's a really successful team, I think, to your point, Mark, the rest of the region, so domestically, or in the case of a larger, more successful team like SKT, a lot of people try to copy their playstyle. And I think, I do think you see that with C9, and I think one of the things that really worked for North American teams at this tournament was the jungle mid. I don't even want to say synergy, but just the way that the jungler and the mid laners worked together to establish mid priority. I think that was made a huge difference in a lot of North American victories. I think it was really telling. So like and I brought this up in a video Kelsey and I did where I go into like further depth with this, but I think it's really telling that Cloud9 looked so strong in the early game just because they'd have Jensen pushing, which allowed Contracts to pretty much do whatever he wanted. And if you looked at C9 in North America, they were not an early focus team at all. So I think there was a little bit of, I think European teams generally ceded a lot of pressure mid, and that really helped out with the way that specifically Cloud9 and TSM approach the game from the mid lane and the jungler.
Yeah,
By the way, You Can't Control Me one in Twitch chat says, what happened to Emily? She sounds terrible and looks like a drawing. Emily's sick right now, and so we're using a drawing of her to approximate her image. That's why her voice is...
I drew it. It's a rotoscoped version of me that I did on my tablet. Anyway.
I think also to that point that the EU mid lane pick priority and stuff was really bizarre because they've been kind of going for... A lot of teams have been playing these really high engage styles, and that's true everywhere, is that you're playing a lot of engage picks because you can get away with it because of the itemization and everything else. But then the EU teams have been playing because these engage styles in mid work really, really well. They kind of feel like it doesn't matter how much of a lead we get, someone will just get caught out mid-game, and then we teamfight there, so we may as well play like these scaling hyper carries like Twitch. And so they also go for scaling mids, and I feel like that's the wrong lesson that Fnatic learned when they lost to Rocket this split, and that's why like they kind of drifted away from this side lane pinch style, which I actually don't think is that good, because when you show in side lane, then that's when you have like the engage mid. But I think that they can still play with strong side lanes. They just also need to understand that you can't split push without mid priority. And you can't, like, then say, oh no, we're losing because we're losing the mid and late game team fights because we're showing side lane, so we should pick a scaling comp and give up all mid pressure so we don't even get ahead, which is what I feel like the wrong lesson that Fnatic learned going into Rift Rivals, and it's really telling about how the matches played out, is that I just feel like a lot of the teams didn't really understand what they were doing. Like, they knew something was wrong before the tournament, but they didn't really understand what was wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah. In the Twitch chat, Bears Drink Decaf says, wait, is no one going to mention that Andy has actually been letting Parth coach?
I mean, they've been doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, usually Andy does let Parth coach, and then, you know, they start losing, and then he needs to come in and save them. I think, I mean, I'm half joking, but I think during their summer split last year, Andy was relatively hands-off when Weldon was there. And I don't think, I mean, like, he's always hands-on at international events. You'll see him in, like, the shots all the time, but I don't know how active he's being.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Is that all of why NA outperformed the EU?
I mean, there's
well, I think P1's a little bit of a...
But yeah.
Yeah. That was the big difference between C9 and TSM, but P1 is just like the complete opposite, where it's just like, we're going to fight over and over and over and over, and Mike Young's just going to run wild, and we're going to pick like really scrappy champions who like power spike at one item or don't really need ultimates to fight. Like Corki is completely non-ultimate reliant and just wants to fight, and like once he gets Triforce, it's good to go.
I do think that's related though, because even when like UL and Fnatic just picked lanes that ceded all priority, and then even when people were super praising like G2's early game against P1, all they did was they would gank top and snowball, and then they didn't even really back up the pressure that they had with vision or things like this, and then it felt like P1 were getting just as much control just by having like strong lane matchups in bottom mid. So I think that it felt like the EU teams weren't really backing up with river control when they did have lane priority, and a lot of times they didn't have lane priority because of poor matchups, and so, or just like poor coordination with the jungler. So that's why P1 could get away with like all of these, I mean, in my opinion, kind of bad invades, and just really snowball from there. So I think that that's, to me, that's kind of also part of it. It feeds into the same thing, is that you just like had zero respect for mid priority at all or anything like this.
Anything else?
And also to that point, G2 are a bit different as well, because I do think that they understood and they were actually trying to play this style, because they've also been kind of like the TSM with the focus on like correct play, and they had like the jungle mid, but their execution was really bad, and every time you have a high engaged meta, Perks gets caught and Expect gets caught like 24/7. It was the same problem in last summer, so I think that's like a slightly separate issue.
Anything else on how NA outperformed EU? No. Okay. Moving on to the next topic, which is NA junglers and EU mids.
So yeah, this is my topic. I kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about, like, this feeds into the original topic, so I wanted to put it right after, which is that everyone was like really hard praising NA junglers, and they were saying, oh, EU mids are actually much worse than we expected, so I wanted to ask a little bit if we felt like this was an individual player issue or something else.
I'm not sure it's an individual player issue. I also kind of take issue with like being like EU mids but not including Jensen and Bjergsen. I know they've been playing in NA a really long time, but they were good players that we kind of took out of their ecosystem and brought into our own. And then it's like, in that sense,
but they've been here for so long.
Yeah,
like,
I don't.
My argument is always like, after you've been here for a year, like you've been forged by NA solo queue, and you're now.
Which is
You're now an NA player.
No, I mean, I think people were saying they're EU mids, but like NA EU mids or something, because even Ryu is technically like played in EU before and everything else, so it was that was like part of the joke. So
yeah. And my point is, like, I agree that they're more NA than they are EU if there's like some weird scale, but just that, like, if you think about how much talent of EU mid laners that North America has siphoned out of there, like, think about how stacked EU's mid lane pool would be if Bjergsen, Jensen, and Ryu were still over there.
Yeah, but Mark, would they be as good if they hadn't been forged in North America?
Who knows, Travis?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, the talent pool has been somewhat diminished in Europe's mid lane just because we had taken so many. Whereas, like, if someone was doing the same thing to North American junglers, like, all right, Acadian's no longer here, and Mike Young gets picked up, and we're left with, like, Smithy and, like, Dardoch, and those are like our two junglers. Like, they can underperform, and then, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, from a practical perspective, I think Kelsey's asking, like, realistically.
Oh, my bad.
Are EU mids like?
Yeah, sorry.
Like the current European mid laners.
Yeah, I got you now.
I mean, that was.
What's your thought?
Yeah, you can answer first if you want. It's fine.
Well, someone else answer first because I had a different thought in mind.
Well, I mean,
Emily?
that was kind of like that was kind of to the point. I mean, I don't think it's the individual players specifically, I guess is how I feel, because I do think like the way in which the NA teams were playing the game was more to the point. Like, Exile, I think, has gotten really lazy about studying mid lane matchups, like super lazy about it, to the point where he'll play like a handful of, because I mean, we saw him at IEM and he had like a better grasp of how to play like the matchups that even he was playing against Bjergsen. Well, and then so I think it's just like, and he admitted, yeah, I've gotten kind of lazy about this and everything else. So I think that there's some of that. And then why are we picking like a Nivea on Fnatic's side? And it's really kind of strange what the European teams thought was good versus what the NA teams thought was good and what ended up being successful. So to me, it was less like we're criticizing the individual players for being bad and more just like the overall composition. But I think you can make an argument to say, okay, maybe the talent level in NA is higher than people were saying it was.
I'm always really weary of jungle talent, and I know we said this, again, I talked about this in one of our videos, but jungling is something that is just as much on the team, like in terms of successful jungling, it's something that is a lot on the team as opposed to the individual jungler. So for example, with Mike Young doing so well, we even pointed out that he got away with a lot of somewhat risky invades because of either poor mid lane matchups on the European side or really bad vision control, especially in the river where the jungler will be crossing to do an invade in the first place. However, I think that Mike Young has a lot of raw talent, and I also think part of it is the team. So, like I said, vision control. The fact that Xpecial played really well in their bot lane is finally drawing more pressure again, or at the very least keeping the lane pushed. I think that all ties into whether a jungler is successful or not. So I don't really see it as like an individual talent pool thing, especially with, like, I'm especially leery of junglers specifically because even in Korea, you have junglers who are massively talented coming out of solo queue and they fail because they do really dumb things and they're never taught a lot of things, or they don't receive help in the form of pushing lanes or vision rotations or coordination with the support, stuff like that. So
Beyond,
like, I'm glad Mike, yeah, poor Beyond. You played his heart out at Rift Rivalries, okay?
Yeah, true story.
Anyway, so I'm glad Mike Young did well, but I think you also have to recognize a lot of other things that are going on that team that contributed to his success. So Ryu pushing the mid lane, Xpecial and Arrow drawing pressure and just generally looking a lot better. Xpecial had a phenomenal tournament, actually, so I think that also has a lot to do with it. Like, it's also a team thing.
Yeah, but just on the topic of Mike Young, I do think he deserves a little bit more credit than you're potentially giving him, just because before he joined, the team had literally no like style and how they wanted to play the game, other than like, I hope we don't get rolled so hard and Arrow falls so far behind that he can't carry us. And now he's like, when in an special interview, he said like when Mike Young came in, he was very vocal about how he wanted to play the game, and he didn't sound like a rookie. And so I think, Mike Young was like, listen, I want to play like with no fear. I want to get in there and I just want to fucking fight people. So we're going to pick a lot of like relatively strong, scrappy early game champions, and then if they haven't snowballed the game completely, at least he's hopefully bought enough room for like Arrow and Ryu to actually scale into like those kind of late game good carries that they are. So like, while obviously he needs a team that can get behind him and give him this good information, a lot of these guys are very experienced, and that probably is much better than like if a team of rookies were built up and tried to play this play style. I agree, but he is still, I think, like the kind of linchpin entirely of why that team has been able to play well at all.
That's fair. I'm always really weary of quickly rating junglers coming out of solo queue. So like, I think a lot of that is on me because I always approach a success like this with a lot of cautious optimism. So it's not like I don't want Mike Young to do well, and I'm not like trying to shit on him. I just think generally, especially with junglers, I try to wait to see a more full body of work. I do think it speaks really well to him and his attitude that he was able to perform so well at this tournament when everyone was just saying that P1 was going to be a dumpster fire. I also think that like that just speaks well of his I don't even know if attitude, but like confidence in his own play.
Yeah, I think it does.
Ever exist?
Huh?
I have no idea what Travis just said.
Neither do I. I feel like your mic is really low.
Hello? Is this better?
Yeah.
Is it better if I do this?
You should just keep the microphone in your mouth, or like, can you clip it onto your beard? Just have a little clip right here.
Mike Young is the greatest jungler to ever exist. That's what I was saying. Emily was saying she's one.
I mean,
we should probably move on though. We've got 15.
Yeah. Okay.
So hurry.
I was just gonna say, I think there are some warning signs, like the fact that he does think that it does feel like he thinks he can outplay basically anyone, and he can take all of these risks that most people won't get away with. He can build the super squishy style and everything else. So I think there are some warning signs for Mike that he might like need to fill out and become more well-rounded about. But I do think that you can definitely say he's talented at this point, so that's good.
Okay, international event scheduling.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, since it's been a topic before, and since it was announced that IEM is not going to be having League of Legends events for the foreseeable future, how did we generally feel about Rift Rivals? How do you think like the overall events went? Were they successful? Were they competitive? That kind of stuff, because I know like a lot of teams, and I'm not even singling out any region, but like most teams going to their respective events were kind of like, okay, this is a fun tournament in the middle of the split where we can go and get experience or whatever. You had even like a few Korean teams saying that. So this isn't about whether teams took the tournament itself seriously, but like, what do we think of this scheduling? Is it awkward because it's in the middle of the season? How successful do you guys think the overall event was?
It's hard. So I wanted to do a Travis Talks titled something like, we wanted more international events, but this isn't what we wanted. And now I feel like I can't, just because I feel like people really liked Rift Rivals, and none of the players were vocal about being annoyed to be there or anything like that, even though I'm sure some of them were. And so it's just kind of this weird thing where, like, I don't think this is the way to do an event. You don't do it like just literally just a handful of weeks before summer playoffs, which qualifies you into Worlds, and you don't do it with like some teams that aren't top tier. Like we sent over this weird mix of teams that like our best team in the region is not actually there. And there's a world where there was a world here where we could have had like 3 terrible NA teams and 3 amazing EU teams. Like, I almost feel like Riot got really lucky with what happened here, and I feel like if NA had gotten shit on, like, the whole obviously North American fans would feel bad about it, but I don't even think European fans would feel that great about this event. So I just, like, it's frustrating because I'm sure this will be seen as a huge success internally, but I don't feel like this is the right way to hold an international event. I just can't do what Travis talks about it because everybody's going to be like, this was the greatest event ever. How dare you, Travis?
Yeah, I think this is like a completely results-oriented, like, I enjoyed this event kind of thing because the expectation was so far into, like, EU's favor that, like, when, you know, the opposite happens, of course you enjoy it. It's the upset. It's the underdog story. Great. So, like, I feel like, yeah, it was a successful event because of what happened, but when you look at a lot of other things, you don't want to say it was, like, great, like, but like Travis said, I didn't hear pros complaining about it, who you would think would be the most vocal group to dislike it, which I was kind of surprised about, but maybe it's the kind of thing, you know, where, like, you can't complain publicly too much about it.
Yeah, I suspect it's more of that.
Also was that there were a lot of, like,
I can't imagine TSM
young players who went, right? There was, like, on a lot of the NAEU teams in particular, there were a lot of young players who went. I think there was more complaints from, like, the Korean teams, but in the NAEU ones...
Except MVP, which goes along with your theory, because they really wanted to get... Yeah.
But you have like a lot of players who haven't been to an international event before, and they're like, yeah, this is really cool, you know? Like, I felt like there were a lot of players like that because, I mean, UOL, Fnatic, all have players who are young and haven't been to an international event before. C9, P1 all have players who are really young and haven't been to an international event before. So I think that there was a lot of, like, enthusiasm from those kinds of players as well. And like the more veterans on the team said, all right, fine, whatever. That kind of situation. So
I think it's also the kind of thing where, like, in the coming weeks, if we see any of the teams that went to Rift Rivals out of NA, like, or even, like, other regions who had to do the travel coming back and slumping a little bit, just from, like, the additional strain of travel and all that stuff, maybe you see a little bit more grumblings then, where it's just like, well, it's nice that we did well, but, like, fuck, I'm tired, and now, so like, we're a little out of whack.
2 teams actually did play in Korea last night that were both at Rift Rivals, Samsung and MVP. MVP actually looked better than I expected. They played one of the last games at Rift Rivals, and then they had to play the first game, and they're looking better, even though they lost. They took Longzhu to 2-1. And then Samsung looked bad, but they still swept Ever, so...
I mean, it's Ever.
Yeah, exactly. But they still have, like, a lot of problems, so... But, I mean, that's... So there's, like, an example of already 2 teams coming back and looking, like, even though MVP didn't win, I do think something happened to them at Rift Rivals where Beyond is playing a lot better, which automatically kind of makes the team look better as a result. And then, like, he seems to actually be communicating with his lanes a lot better. I don't know if that's a result of Rift Rivals.
I think
maybe they'll take that momentum because they performed
I'm most
better.
Interested
I don't know if it's the new Rek'Sai.
And seeing how KT react, I guess, because they were kind of looking at this tournament as like a breather. You know, they can relax and refresh, and then LCK teams show up and get beaten in the relay by LPL, and it's just like I feel like KT is a really moody and emotional team, and so they're gonna go back to Korea and kind of be like, okay, that was fun. Let's not do that again. I guess
they can also be like, well, we won.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think KT and SKT are going to be the 2 teams that I'm more curious to see about how they perform.
Yeah, actually, do you guys think that this did a good job of setting up storylines for Worlds?
Yes and no, because, like, on the one hand, I don't think many teams were serious, like, super prepped for it. Like, I didn't feel like the European teams really knew what the NA teams were about, in terms of, like, it didn't feel like they super scouted us and they were, like, attacking us in pick ban phase that well. Like, so I didn't I wasn't sure if it was the same level of effort that they put in on a weekly basis in EU or what they would do in a bigger tournament. So I think I think NA showed that currently at our level we're probably a little bit better, but it's the kind of thing that I wouldn't put too much stock into it.
What about in the other regions, Kelsey and Emily?
I think I don't think it really. I'm surprised that the LPL won, but at the same time, I'm also aware that in the current form, some of the top 2 LPL teams, top 2, 3 LPL teams can take a game off some of the top 2, 3 LCK teams. It just shouldn't have happened all in one day, and that was a really lucky coincidence. But I don't think it's setting up huge storylines or anything, though. When I go on Weibo, I do get a lot of people asking me, "Oh, is LPL really good now? Are we the best region?" No. No, you're not, but nice try.
Yeah, because we know NA's the best. All right.
Sure.
How to improve the event format. Whose topic was this?
How do I... So, no yeah, it's just it was mine.
Kelsey.
But I kind of wanted to ask, is there a recommendation we'd give to make it better? Because I figured this would be, all of us complaining about the timing and how the event was kind of weird, and especially, the LPL, LCK event with the single game format, or... I know there were some complaints on Twitter about NA versus EU because it felt like the NA teams were just competing against each other for a better score to go to the final, and maybe a European team didn't even deserve to be in the final after they played so poorly in groups. So, I don't know. I guess that's kind of my question is, if you could improve the Rift Rivals event, how would you change it?
So I liked... Oh, no, go.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I was gonna say because I'm a series person, I enjoyed that we actually received a best of 5, even though it was a 3-0 sweep. I really liked that as opposed to the best of 1s. Again, Kelsey and I talked about this in our video, but we kind of talk about the different strategies you have to go into with a relay best of 1 format, what the Taiwanese, Korean, and Chinese teams had, as opposed to NAEU, where you have the 2 best teams going to a best of 5 final. I actually, as weird as it is, found the format that the GPL, Oceania, and Japanese teams had to be kind of interesting, where it was basically win until you lose, which meant that even though the GPL had the worst win rate, they still had Gigabyte Marines, which is one of the best teams at that tournament, kind of quote-unquote reverse sweep Oceania their semifinals. So I think that kind of gives, that's a weird, I don't want to say happy medium because I feel like that format still has issues, but I think that's an interesting combination of the two, if that makes sense, that still makes it region versus region, because this isn't supposed to be, or my understanding of the event is it's Rift Rivals. It's not supposed to be team versus team. It's supposed to be region versus region.
Right. And that's what I was going to say is I actually was more excited when that was kind of the structure of the NAEU one. I understand that brings a lot of problems where it's oh, we didn't get to play because our region just won without us, and now we're going home. It's a giant fucking waste of our time. It's I can understand there's some issues still with it, but I did like the more creative aspect of the tournament, and just a bunch of best of 1s into a best of 5. That said, it probably fits better in as a side stage thing after another tournament, or for All Stars or something. Something structured like that might fit better there, just because it does feel really weird if that happened where P1 surprise actually beasted out, and then they just beat all 3 teams, and you're oh, C9 and TSM go home, you're done here.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of had that anyway, right? Because you'd still have the group stage to decide the order of the teams, and then you'd have the final day, and then And with the different format, there's still a chance that like P1, Fnatic, G2, and C9 play, but they're probably right as it is right now. They're just not going to. So.
Yeah, I want a format that I think is kind of. I never truly understood what the original format was, but as they like pretty much changed it immediately. But I would love to see a format where it's kind of like, okay, in StarCraft and GSL they used to have this format where it was like Team League,
right?
And you would have like 7 Team Liquid people and 7, whatever SKT people. And
it's like the GPL
really
format
cool
that Emily was talking about.
But did they have? Yeah. But did they have a leader who was playing them like Pokemon?
I mean, you could talk about like the coaches.
The coaches.
The
coaches would gather together and
decide who goes first. Yeah. So.
Oh, really?
Travis, put your microphone in your mouth again. By the way.
They decide to go who goes first.
So like with the LCK, LMS, and
like the
LPL format, and then the other Asian format, the coaches select which team they want. So like for the GPL format, like the GPL sent their 2 worst teams out. They got stomped by Sin Gaming, who Oceania sent out, and then GPL sent in Gigabyte Marines, who just reverse swept all 3 Oceania teams. Mm-hmm. The other Asian format was slightly different, but like for example, in the final you had LPL specifically sending EDG against Samsung because that's the matchup they wanted. That's the matchup they guessed, and that's the matchup they wanted. And then from there, they chose to send. Or my understanding is they chose to send which team they wanted to go next.
It was interesting because
that's very similar. I want that.
Yeah.
That's how you prove it. You just take that format.
They did the interview afterwards where the coaches said, "Yeah, we knew that Samsung would play first for this reason, and we thought the EDG could do well against them for this reason, and it made them sound like these like crafty masterminds through the entire series, and it was just like, okay."
Don't forget the picture of them all huddled around a street lamp at 4 a.m.
And that was my favorite part too, is like they said we didn't really prepare or talk to each other at all before the event, and then we got to the event and before the semifinal it's like, okay, we've only won 2 games in the group stage.
Now unfortunately like to imagine then the NA and EU coaches trying to sound like masterminds. I don't know if they could do that. I just imagine Parth walking away and like throwing his hands up in the air.
Did you see his reaction when Svenskeren stole the Baron?
Yeah.
He just looks like disappointed father.
Yeah.
Like this is what it comes to. Like this is how we win. Fuck.
It's good. All right, so I'm now working on borrowed time because I'm supposed to get kicked out of this hotel.
Dude, the hotels are nice. They're not like
they're not gonna kick
what were you possibly doing up there?
Okay, does P1 come back down?
This is my topic. So obviously, yay P1, they did super well, and we're all happy about that. Mike Young, I think, like Kelsey said, is obviously talented. The question is, how sustainable is this? And then, if it is sustainable, where do they end up given that NA as a region has improved? Because it kind of felt like last season P1 limped into 3rd place in playoffs, where they struggled at the end of the season. They had an easy first match in playoffs, got smashed in the semifinals, and then barely eked out a victory over an also slumping FlyQuest. So it wasn't super convincing. And now CLG is playing better, Mortal is playing better, all these things going on. So, do you think P1 will stay kind of surging as they did at Rift Rivals, or are they going to come back down? And if they stay surging, is it enough to break into the top 4?
So the problem is they're going to come back and they're going to have to play against other North American teams.
Oh my god!
So I think they'll drop.
Oh god, the sunglasses.
So this, I watched...
Just in case someone almost wanted to take you seriously, Travis,
I watched the EUCS broadcast afterwards, and there was a segment, so now when I see you with the sunglasses, I think of the segment where the casters were saying, after Red Bulls lost, they said, Red Bulls gives you wings. But they flew too close to the sun, and it was hot. And then they put the sunglasses on.
Oh, God.
So that's all I'm thinking about now. Anyway, go ahead.
That just makes CS. Alright.
So... Oh, no, go.
Well, I was going to say, like, realistically, though, you know, Rift Rivals seems like such a chaotic environment. Like, people they don't have a ton of time to prepare for it. They're, like, it's a clash of metas. You don't really have a lot of time to, like, recover from it. It feels like a place where you have a higher chance for an upset. Not that North America beating EU was an upset, but it's a world where, like, everybody has a better chance of winning or losing. So I think in a more stable system, which is like the general league play, you're going to see a lower chance of P1 doing well.
I think, so there are two things I look at. With P1, previously when we saw them, they were a really strong 1-3-1 team. A lot of that relied on Ryu controlling the mid lane, so that typically Meteos could kind of do whatever he wanted. And then their bot lane always drew pressure. Like, they were always winning, and they usually had these pretty massive leads that also helped them out in applying pressure elsewhere around the map. The good thing about this P1 is that they kind of have that back, right? So, like, I know I keep harping on the fact that P1's bot lane has improved, but because the team had such a heavy focus on it last split, I think that's a really good thing for P1 if they can just sit back and rely on their bot lane to have at least like some advantage and draw pressure. And I think Xpecial and Arrow right now are playing pretty well together. We'll see if, because like I said, I think this is one of Xpecial's better performances in years. So we'll see if that keeps up when he comes back to North America. But thus far, it looks like a really good fit. I think to Mark's point, they have a lot more of an identity now in terms of Mike Young coming in and saying, I want to play this style, I want to be fast, I want to be aggressive. They have an improved bot lane. They have Ryu, who Kelsey has mentioned this before, and I know she also, I think, has an interview coming out with him. He does just so much better when his side lanes are pushing. So it's kind of all of these pieces that P1 didn't have when they looked just absolutely atrocious in the beginning of the split, are now kind of assembling themselves together all at the same time. I do think the thing you have to look at when Phoenix One is coming back to North America is North American teams typically ward a bit more for those invades that Mike Young likes to do, some of which are highly optimistic. So I don't think he's going to get away with that as much. And yeah, so I think they're going to be a lot better than they were. Like, I think they could be a playoff team, because when I look at a lot of other teams in that like middle region, they either lack an identity or they're just kind of falling very fast. Like Dignitas, I think, is looking very disorganized right now. Echo Fox has the same kind of problems that they've had since their inception. So I mean, I think P1 has as good of a chance as any of those teams to kind of slide into that last playoff spot.
I buy it. I think the only thing I'd say is, like, I think, like Travis was saying, I think he actually was surprisingly correct on this, is that P1 at this event kind of remind me of, like, Gigabyte Marines, where they were, like, just so much more aggressive than any other team in attendance that, like, if you had never scrimmed P1 or never played against them in the LCS before, you're not quite prepared for, like, those risky invades, because, like you said, they're, like, kind of doubling down on something, and you get so used to playing against this controlled style, and it's like, oh, now this team's just throwing that out the window, and they're just at my Wraith camp 2v2ing me over these for no reason, just because they want to be in my face. So I think they benefited from that a lot, and they'll probably look a little worse in NA, but I think they're still, like you said, because so many teams are dropping, going to make playoffs.
P1 are going to win NALCS. It's good.
Whoa, Travis! Whoa!
Right there. That's all.
Okay.
All right. moving on to the last topic. Was LPL's win a shock? Whoa, LPL won? Oh my god!
Yeah, LPL won.
I'm shocked. Alright.
I mean, yeah, this
was it though?
This was kind of referring to the format for the LPL, LCK, LMS one was like the relay format with best of one grand final, best of one semifinal. Like LPL had the worst record in group stage. They went 2-6. So they lost to LMS and LPL teams, so they were in the 3rd seed going to semifinal. They beat LMS 3-2, primarily on the back of WE, because WE had to play twice, and WE beat the top LMS team twice, and then RNG won their game also. And then you go into the next set, which was LPL versus LCK, and as soon as they say it's EDG versus Samsung, EDG had been playing like terrible the entire tournament. They hadn't won a game. And my thought is, okay, this is over. Because you could see a scenario where LPL teams kind of get some good matchups where they send, like, their crummy team against SKT or whatever it is. And it ended up being EDG, Samsung first, WE, SKT. So they actually, like, matched them up for our second best teams together, like our for best teams together, and LPL won best of ones that way. So is it shocking that the LPL teams are able to win these best of ones, or is it just like best of ones?
It's not shocking to me, although I was surprised that. So, like, if you ask, can WE beat SKT in a best of one? The answer is yes. I've seen them do it before at MSI. I think best of one allows for, you know, a team like WE, a team like Flash Wolves to go in and be like, we're going to, you know, have this very specific, or like to your point with EDG and Samsung, I think EDG went in with a lot stronger draft and a lot, I don't even know if it's better understanding, but they entered that game knowing what they wanted to do to Samsung, right? And like Samsung is not infallible. In fact, I think they have a lot of issues that they haven't necessarily been punished for. So it's not surprising to me, especially when you take a team like, for example, SKT, one of their greatest strengths is their ability to adapt over a series. So I would say that if it came down to like a best of 5 series, like what we had from NA and EU, the result would have been different, but I have to give this to the LPL because I think the LPL teams went into those best of ones with a pretty good idea of what they wanted to do, or like how they could win, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I would still find it like a little bit of a shock just because of how that group stage went, where it was seemingly very, very dominant. So like, it felt like sometimes, you know, like you watch and it like a team looks a little lost and it's like, well, they're not going to figure this out. That's kind of how I felt like a little bit watching those, especially like the SKT games.
Especially Edward Gaming. I felt like this team has
Yeah.
never learned anything. They're never going to learn anything. They still have the same problems they had in 2014. This is over. So.
My question is, what happened to Audi?
Audi.
What did
kind
EDG
of the same
do
thing that happened to Amazing J in 2015. Same thing that happened to Mouse in 2016. But Kelsey, something
Did
bad. We had the death of a family member. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he did.
Oh, you're mocking?
I'm not mocking anyone. I'm saying I'm sure he had a death in the family.
Travis, are you going to take us to the checkout lady?
Maybe.
This seems really exciting. I'm suddenly more interested in this than whether or not NA will do well at Worlds this year, you know?
Is that a topic on here? No.
No.
Are we,
okay, good.
What else do we have? Anything?
We can talk about that later.
Do anybody know the weather?
Yeah, there was going to be one more, but I forgot what it is, and I didn't have time to put it up, so I guess it doesn't matter.
The hoodie that I'm wearing right now, by the way, or will be wearing, is from the only true global esports league, the Heroes Global Championship.
Do they play online?
Yes, but it's global, as in it's one league. You know, like.
Yeah, I know. I got that. That's why I asked if they play online. Like, is China playing North America?
No. They don't. They. It's literally like the same system. They just call it. It would be like if if it was like LCS.
Oh.
They just
We're in the League of Legends. Yeah. One league.
We're in the global World Championship League.
You need questions from chat right now. Got a couple seconds. Looking.
This is quality production.
NALCS Studio needs something other than a TSM banner to hang up for a summer final.
What was that question?
Basically, he's asking, is TSM going to win?
He says NALCS Studio needs something other than a TSM banner to hang up for semifinals. That's not. Oh wait, here we go. Typhoon Hawk. Boring question. For Emily and Kelsey, do you think that H2K and Misfits would have done better against NA at Rift Rivals due to their playstyles, or do they have too many holes?
What a coincidence. We talked about it.
Yeah, we actually talked about what DU teams we thought would do better at Rift Rivals when we did our show, so if you want to see that, that went up today.
Where is it? Like,
it's
you guys keep
referencing this, and then nobody knows.
It's on the YouTube, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/KARON Moser, so the same as my Twitter handle. Yeah. And it's
also in answer.
So answer?
In short, we don't necessarily think that it would have changed the outcome with TSM winning, but we did think that Misfits and H2K would have probably looked better.
Yeah, we think that like Misfits, H2K, and Vitality probably have the best understanding of mid-jungle right now in EU, so those would be the three teams that you would send specifically to deal with that problem.
Okay. Next question. Does Fnatic change their playstyle, and does Rift Rivals spanking benefit G2 more now?
I think G2 didn't learn anything from this event, because you can see from their compositions, you can see from what they're trying to do, that they already know their problems. They already know what they're doing wrong. They just don't know how to fix it. So, like, I don't think this event really benefited G2. And, like, I would say if I had to pick a team that this event benefited the least, it would be G2. So.
The Fnatic question is just, like, I think it's a question of, like, how stubborn do they want to be? Because just because you got exposed by, like, these North American teams and now you're going to lose when you get to Worlds, like, that's not necessarily true. And I think it's a little bit of, like, a logical fallacy to just be like, now they can't beat NA. And as long as they're still successful in EU, it's kind of up to them, like, if they want to risk changing and getting worse.
I do think also Fnatic, when I talked to them, and they had started to change the way they were playing even before this, because they lost to Rocket and they're looking at answers, but I think that they're changing kind of in the wrong way, so maybe they learn from this Rift Rivals and it actually helps them. So.
Cheyenne, last question, and this is one for Emily, I'm sure. Is
KT Rolster gonna get their super team shit together for the summer finals and win LCK finals?
No. Sadly. I don't think so.
I feel like even if KT looked like the best team in Korea right now, like, as a caveat, she would still say no, because
I would just be, like, eviscerating them still, being like, you're doing this and this wrong. I think KT are, even at this point, aware of their own, like, weaknesses. Like, I don't think you can look at that team, especially if you look at, like, their games against SKT, which, I mean, I think people quickly forget, but that series was actually almost a KT 2-0. I think they are actually aware of their issues, but they keep doing them for some reason. Like, their drafting tells me that they generally pay attention to what their team would do best on, but I don't know. Like, I've said this in videos, and I went on a recent KT rant, but, like, I just don't see it at this point. I feel like the team would have to look a bit more cohesive, because this is the split to do it, right? They've been together for a split, like, supposedly Spring Split was the one where they could try to figure out their team coordination and synergy, and we're still not seeing it. We're still watching them make a lot of these same mistakes. So...
Really quickly, Dadaris says, Kelsey, let me see your tattoo on your arm. What is it? And then Cheyenne, who asks the KT roster question, says, wait, what is this tattoo? Need to see it. I don't know if you want to talk about your tattoo. You might have to, though.
I mean, sure. This one is just a flower thing. I don't know. It's a vase. Basically, I had a tattoo artist friend, and I let her practice on me. So.
Wow. That's very nice of you. Okay. Finally, it is time for Emily Rand's anime pick of the week, fresh off of Anime Expo. She's got some hot picks for you. What do you got, Emily?
This is going to be like a simple.
She died.
This is going to be like a simplistic answer if you've been paying attention to the new season at all, but I followed the manga for a while, and the anime was just released. It actually streamed on Twitch for free. It's called Welcome to the Ballroom. It's about ballroom dancing. You'll see a lot of, again, like I know Kelsey makes fun of me because I often look at animation, like cinematography, character design. So it's they took the character designer from Haikyuu, the volleyball anime, and it's basically like very dynamic, very dynamic animation with like very exaggerated character designs that will probably bother a lot of people, but I think it looks really cool in the context of showcasing lines in ballroom dancing. So yeah, it's about a kid that finds himself through dancing.
Avali was freaking out about that, and at Anime Expo they had an area where you could, like, they were promoting that anime. They had an area where they would teach you ballroom dancing.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, to promote it. She was very excited. Anyway, that is the show. I'm unemployed. I've got videos. I'll be at LCS probably this weekend. You can check it out over at youtube.com/StateOfLeague. Then we got, what, Mark? What do you got? You launched some reality TV show bullshit.
It's not a reality TV show. It's just a YouTube channel. I am still doing all the stuff for Riots. I'll be casting Challenger on Thursday. I'll be on the analyst desk on the weekend. I'll still be doing the Blame game this week. And then, like Travis said, I started working with Scara's household, which is him, Pokey, Lily, Poke.
And not Yuna.
Yuna's still going to be a part of it. He's just not living at the house anymore. And we're all just making videos together, having fun. And so it's called Offline TV. You can check that out as well.
All right. Kelsey Moser is in Germany now. What do you got, Kelsey?
Yeah, so I'll be doing LCS interviews every week, but transcribed, so, you know, slightly more effort. Travis likes to put in. But they'll be on Slingshot and ESPN. Also continue to write features, and I'll be doing stuff on my YouTube channel more often now. youtube.com/KARONMOSER. We'll be doing some stuff with Emily, at least, and, yeah.
Emily.
Yes. So I've been doing LCS interviews at North American LCS because I'm still in Los Angeles. And I'm also doing, again, like features and content for ESPN, Slingshot. My InVen Global stuff will be coming out soon. For stuff that I don't even know if I'm I guess I'm excited about it. I basically wrote some stuff on Korean teams at Rift Rivals. I have a thing on Samsung that should be coming out tomorrow. So if you want to know about all the problems I kept referencing about Samsung but didn't elaborate on in this episode, you can read that.
Very good. Well, hey, thanks everyone for watching. I will be home next week, probably, so then this will be a better produced show.
You want to get Shake Shack, dude?
Yes! Oh my god, I wish you hadn't said that. Shake Shack sounds so good right now, and I'm like...
Yeah, maybe I'll just go on my own, you know? Get my craving out of the way.
Sorry, I'm out. Thanks everyone for watching. You can turn off the stream now, Kelsey.
Okay.
See you guys.